operations center. As the enemy forces attacked with even greater ferocity, unleashing a barrage of rockets, propelled grenades, and recoilless rifle rounds, Staff Sergeant Romachet identified the point of attack, directed air support to destroy over 30 enemy fighters. At a distant position was being rushed to by enemy soldiers. He ran to give aid. Upon receipt of orders to proceed to the next objectives, his team pushed forward 100 meters under overwhelming enemy fire to recover and prevent enemy fighters from taking the bodies of fallen comrades. Staff Sergeant Romachet's heroic actions throughout this day-long battle were critical in suppressing an enemy that had the greater numbers. His extraordinary efforts gave Bravo Troop the opportunity to regroup, reorganize, and prepare for the counterattack that allowed the troop to account for its personnel and secure combat post Keating. Staff Sergeant Romachet's discipline and extraordinary heroism above and beyond the call of duty reflect great credit upon himself, Bravo Troop, 4th Brigade, 4th Infantry Division, United States Army. I picked that one because, again, I had read the book, and it was amazing. What he did there was literally just a small part of that day. This happened just a few years ago. This man is still alive. This man, we think, hey, there's nobody out there today, right? We watch TV, we think, man, what happened to this generation? This generation is still standing out there. They're still out there for us. Hey, I love this country and I love this nation, and I thank Jesus for what he's done for this country. All right, you can be seated for a second. I want to introduce our next speaker. For all the, I guess there's 50, 60 guests here. I want to introduce Miss Christina Ball. She's got some real words of wisdom for us. Christina, the show is yours.
The show is mine? No, the show is God's. Here's your phone, Danny. Might need that. Oh, well, let's just give the Lord some love tonight. Let's give him a round of applause. Just give him some glory and some honor. All of that goes unto God. Goes unto God. You know, we read these, he's reading these stories, and we're talking about these soldiers. And as Danny was reading this, I was thinking, wow. You may ever feel like that, Sergeant? Because I feel like I get guns and bullets and all sorts of things from my own stupidity and the enemy, launching grenades at me, and then pastor launching grenades at me from the pulpit. That kind of, I feel kind of like him sometimes. So I'm just saying, like, I kind of feel like that. That man was like Mr. Incredible. He just kept going and kept going. That's amazing. We have to give honor where honor is due. That is biblical. We've heard that many times. If you've not read that, please find those scriptures and read it. Get it into your spirit. You must give honor where honor is due. And any man or woman that serves this country and our freedom, fights for our freedom, they deserve honor and recognition. So, hey, GVM is a place to give honor where honor is due. Amen. So I'm just going to talk to y'all a little bit tonight. It's been a while since I've spoken, and I was a little bit anxious, to be honest. And I don't know why, because when I get up here, I just feel, I'm talking to family. And those of y'all online who don't know me, we're still family. It's okay. And I don't understand what made me so anxious, because, like I said, you all are family. And, this is just the normal everyday chats that we have, I think. So God had me pondering a little bit about a story, and I'm just going to read sort of a synopsis of a story that is in the Bible, and it's regarding David. And I've had David on my mind a lot. David, he's a good man. I love our David, but I love the David in the Bible too. David can give us a lot of insight on how to be a good Christian, how to follow God, and how to be the person that God wants us to be. He can give us a lot of wisdom. He can show us also what not to do. I'm just saying. But in this story, he talks, or he shows us, he gives us the example of what to do. And I'm going to say a name multiple times throughout this. It's Mephibosheth. So if I get it all mixed up, and I probably will, please forgive me. He was actually the son of Jonathan, who was the son of Saul. Now, Jonathan was David's best buddy. I don't know if you all know that. I don't know what you know about it, but we're just going to start like you've never heard this story before. So if you've heard it, just bear with me. So he was the son of Saul, and he was David's best buddy. And he had a son named Mephibosheth. And so David, he loved Jonathan. Danny and I were really close. We really are. And I love him like a brother. Liz and I are very close, and I love her. She's my family. I'm close with most of you in here. And you're my family. We love each other. And if somebody was going to come at you, I don't think I would let them do that. If they were coming after you, I would do everything I could to stop it. I would not let anybody, mess with Danny. There's no way. So that's kind of the way it was with Jonathan, and he protected David, and he kind of kept his father from actually killing him. King Saul wanted to kill David, and Jonathan saved him. And when Jonathan, the father of Mephibosheth, passed away, he died at a battle at Mount Gilboa. David, he wanted to show his kindness to their family and for his friendship, to give honor to Jonathan. And he felt led to bless other people because of all the blessings that he had had and the conquests that God had provided him. God gave him favor in almost every battle that he fought. He said, you go, and you surely will take them, or he'd say, don't go, and David would listen. He would, he was obedient. And so God gave him favor, and he got a lot of spoils from a lot of battles. And so David was going to be good to the people. So David, he sought out a little help because he knew there was a servant of the house of Saul, of King Saul, named Ziba. And he asked him for some help finding the relative of Jonathan and Saul. He wanted some help trying to find this guy. He knew there was somebody left. If there was, he wanted to know who it was. And he was told about Mephibosheth. Now, he had a difficult childhood, Mephibosheth, because early on, when the news of his father and his grandfather's passing, the young boy was taken away from his home in Gibeah by his nurse. He was probably trying to avoid, the enemies, and unfortunately, during the process of avoiding those enemies, running away from and trying to escape, in the process, he was accidentally thrown to the ground, and his feet were permanently maimed. So he was immediately, at 5 years old, he was crippled. And in that time period, people with severe disabilities, they weren't proudly shown or welcomed, especially in royal kingdoms and in royal places. They just didn't really feel the need to recognize them. They actually told them to stay away. They weren't allowed in those areas. In fact, I just read today that when they were building David his house, there were parts of that, that they were building, and they put out a decree that anybody who had any affliction at all, any kind of mental affliction, physical affliction, any kind of illness or sickness, that they were to stay as far away from the house of David as they could go. So if you were crippled or you had an ailment and any kind of malady of any kind, you were to not even come near the kingdom at all or the house of David. So Mephibosheth was probably hidden away to keep him safe, obviously. People wanted to kill Saul, and they thought that maybe they needed to keep him safe from David. Think about it. All these other people are trying to kill Saul and his family. Well, why not David? He has a good reason. So it was just considered better not to recognize those disabilities and to hide him and keep him away from David and all people in public. But David made it a point to meet Mephibosheth. Once he sent for him, and he said he wanted to be taken from where he was staying, and he wanted him to come to where he was. Now, this is a young man with a malady. He had a problem, a physical ailment. He went from the house that he was in, and he was brought unto David. And you can find that in 2 Samuel 9 and 4. If you're taking notes, if you want to look that up, read it later. King David and Mephibosheth, complicated relationship. Think about it. So you've got the old enemy of your grandfather, and he's requesting you to come to the place you're not supposed to be, and he wants to talk to you. He wants you in his presence, and chances really, ideally in his mind, were pretty slim that anything good was going to come of this. So he was kind of a little iffy about it, and I could see that, rightfully so. He wasn't even allowed around the area. He was banished from that area. Anybody with an ailment was. So because of that, he was a little skittish. And I mean, I'd be the same way, y'all. I don't know. Maybe y'all will be gung-ho to go in there like that Sergeant Danny was talking about. So chances that things were going to go good in his mind were not good. So he was probably afraid, I'm sure. If you put yourself in his shoes, I would have been. So he had already gone through so much in his life, because of the childhood injury, and now, his father and his grandfather were killed at a young age, and he wasn't really hopeful for this meeting. Yet, what happened was the complete opposite, because Mephibosheth fell down in front of David in surrender and humility, but the king said, hey, don't freak out. It's okay. It's all good. Chill out. Get up, And, he said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to harm you in any way. He said, I'm not just going to do that. I want to, thank you. And he said, come on in. I want you to come and I want you to dine at my table. And not only that, but I want to give you all the things that were your father's. And so he was a permanent guest at the table of David, and he was the king, so he was in the inner courts at the table of the king, and he was crippled. And he was also the grandson of his greatest enemy, who had now had all of his family riches, land and so forth, restored unto him. I think I would have been a little bit suspicious, but I don't know that he was. It doesn't say that, but this was an honor, in his eyes. And so David's friendship with Jonathan is the reason that he did this. Saul, his grandfather, hunted him down to kill him, and yet instead, David said, that doesn't matter to me. I want to honor Jonathan. And many times we saw that David would not, when he was given the opportunity to kill Saul, he didn't do it. He gave him mercy. And David again showed mercy when Mephibosheth was brought to his table, and he said, you're my family now. You're going to sit at the king's table. You're going to eat the king's food. The king's food was the best food. The king's food was tasted by somebody to make sure it wasn't poisonous. The king's food was prepared in ways that we cannot even imagine, and I'm sure that there are some really grotesque menu items that they would eat, but he had the best food and the best things, and he went from the poorhouse to the kingdom. And I like that kind of story, rags to riches. I mean, he kind of went from riches to rags to riches, but hey, all in the name of mercy, right? So not only did this happen, but Mephibosheth, he got a little different. He changed a little bit. So later on in the story, you find out in 2 Samuel 15 and 16, you find out that Ziba, the servant that was Saul's servant, he actually went to David and he told him, hey, you know what? You've given him all of this land and all of this money, and all has been restored unto him. And even though he sits at your table, his idea is to take over the kingdom again. He's going to take all that, and he's going to make this kingdom his. That's what he's going to try to do. He's going to try to overthrow you. So Ziba went to King David, and he said, look, I'm sorry. He's going to cross you, and I need to warn you. So David took all that was Mephibosheth's, and he gave it to Ziba. But he also ended up helping Mephibosheth. Even then, after all that was recorded, he was actually being sought out to be executed by the Gibeonites, who wanted to kill everybody that was connected to King Saul and his family. Anything in his lineage they wanted to destroy. And yet David saved him. So mercy on mercy on mercy. Wow. Wow. You can find that in 2 Samuel 21 and 7. Anybody ever heard of the Beatitudes of the Bible? Raise your hand if you heard that. So the Beatitudes, they can be found in Matthew 5, 3 through 12. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they